It just can never be easy being a Kings fan, can it? Just they will never make anything easy, never make anything relaxed. Going up 30 in the third quarter and still having to sweat this one out late. It's not fun at all. But at the end of the day, they get the win on the road, and they're now 5-1 on this road trip going into the final game in Cleveland. And so it's really tough to be mad at that. Sure, it could feel a little better, but just, it's every game. They just got to make it interesting. I think in this game, it's a little more understandable being on the second night of a back to back on a long road trip, losing the legs a little bit, not being able to push the pace and that resulting in a little stagnation offensively. So I feel like that's a little more forgivable than some of the past ones. But the problem is that it's a trend, and we've seen this many, many times of the Kings not being able to put teams away and letting teams back in. And so if this were a one-off where it's like, okay, it's the second night of a back-to-back on the road, long road trip, like that's fine, you got the win. It's a little more concerning because it is a trend, but they got the win. They pulled it out. Obviously, in any basketball game, both ends of the floor are connected. Offense leads to better defense, defense leads to better offense. That's true to some degree for every team. I think for certain teams, it's even more true. And I think the Kings are one of those teams where both ends are just very, very connected. And when they're not having success on one end, it makes it tougher on the other end. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is the pace that the Kings want to play at. They want to play at a very fast pace, so they want to get up and down the floor. To be able to do that, it definitely helps to get stops, and it helps to obviously force turnovers and things like that. And so if you're not defending well, then that it makes that more difficult to be able to push the pace. Not impossible, definitely, but more difficult. And then on the other end, I think the Kings' kind of lack of defensive versatility can make it tough because if the offense is stagnating, if they're turning the ball over or there's long rebounds and the other team is pushing the pace, the Kings aren't super well equipped to be able to defend in transition. And when cross matches happen, even if it's not a full-blown fast break, when cross matches happen, the Kings aren't really suited to defend, mismatches like that, or they're more mismatches are generated because of the lack of versatility of some of the defenders on this team, or a lot of the defenders. And so I think that's what you saw when it in the third quarter there, after, I thought the Kings were coming out and they were finally stepping on the throats of their opponent, up 19 at half, you come out, hit 3 straight threes, you get the lead up to 30. I'm like, yes, finally, we're not going to have to sweat one out. But of course, that's not the case. So not being able to, continue to push the pace and get easy buckets in transition leads to the offense stagnating a bit. And it just felt like the Bulls almost like barely ever had to actually score in the half court, because the Kings' half court defense in the first half was really, really good. It was a great defensive half. And in the third quarter, it felt like their offense just never gave them a chance to set their defense and get those stops. And this is the same story of what happened against Phoenix and why Phoenix came back. It's because they scored within 3 seconds every time down. The Kings' defense was solid, but they never gave their defense a chance. And so it's just about turning the ball over too much. There was just a lot of poor decision making in that third quarter, lots of turnovers. And I think just legs being tired meant less offensive movement, both in terms of player movement and ball movement. And so then that leads to certain guys, Fox, Monk, Sabonis, trying to force things offensively. And luckily, Fox was having an amazing game and Malik Monk was having a really good game as well. And so that's a big reason why we came out with the win in the end. Sabonis is less suited for that type of like forcing it and creating for himself offense. And so that results in 6 turnovers from him. And obviously we've seen many times where Fox and Monk don't have it going and then they're the ones turning it over as well. But luckily that wasn't the case in this one. When the Kings are kind of the last resort is to go to Sabonis in the post, you kind of know things are going really poorly and it results in a lot of those turnovers. And a lot of times it's just the Kings trying to get it to Sabonis in the post because nothing's working offensively, and it's like 7 seconds on the shot clock by the time they get it to him in the post. And then that's tough for him to deal with. Or it's just Monk or Fox trying to score in isolation, which also doesn't work very well. It was just the Kings, they brought the Bulls back into it and gave them confidence by turning it over and allowing a super quick, it was like a 10-0 or 12-2, I think, run. Maybe it was even a 12-0 run after the Kings had that 30-point lead. There was one possession in the fourth quarter that kind of illustrated why ball movement is so important. And it was a possession where the Kings were moving the ball, everyone was moving. They didn't get anything into the paint. They didn't get any penetration. They didn't get an open look. But what happened was they were trying for the entire shot clock to make something happen. They were moving the ball well. And you can live with not getting a great look offensively as long as they've tried every possibility and they're playing the right way. And they did on this one possession. And so they pass it back out to Fox, who takes a deep three that's kind of contested, and he drains it. Now, of course, he's not going to hit that every time. It's a tough shot. We're lucky he was on fire. But my point in that is that catch and shoot three, that's such a higher percentage than someone else just taking a pull-up three. And so when the ball is moving, even if the shot that you get isn't a great shot, it just has such a higher probability of going in than if you're playing ISO and you take a pull-up shot. I think it was just one of those possessions that kind of vindicated all of those things that, you know, coaches say where it's like the ball finds energy and things like that. It's true. And that possession, I thought, totally showed that. There was also another possession in the fourth where the Kings were moving the ball and they ended up getting a shot clock violation. Like, obviously that's not good, but it's a lot better that they're trying to move the ball and get a good shot than what they had been doing before that. So they're moving the ball, trying to get a good shot, and it results in a dead ball turnover instead of a live ball turnover, a long miss. Like, obviously you still want to get a shot up, but just everything goes so much better when there's ball movement. And I thought Fox and Monk, both of them, I thought they did a really good job of late in the fourth continuing to push the pace. They didn't get baited into this game where they have the lead, so they're going to slow it down and take the full shot clock every time, because that's kind of what has happened in other games where it's like there's still 4 minutes left or so. It's a pretty close game. It's not time to run clock yet. I mean, it would have been better to do that in the third quarter, but at this point, they did a good job of pushing the pace, and they got some easy buckets. Monk got an and one off one, and then there was another possession where Fox pushes the pace, pushes it up to Monk. Monk finds Sabonis inside, another and one. Those were the plays that I felt like really won this game down the stretch. I mentioned earlier about the Kings in the third quarter not really giving their half-court defense a chance. And I thought in the fourth, they gave their half-court defense more of a shot, especially late. But they just had a really tough time of staying in front of Kobe White, of rebounding, the offensive rebound. There was quite a few offensive rebounds and putbacks from the Bulls. They ended up trying to blitz Kobe White. So at least they tried to adjust, somehow to not allow a layup every time down. I just felt like the difference was from the first half to the fourth quarter was in the first quarter, they were showing bodies, forcing kickouts, and then they were forcing the ball to be like the shot to be taken by not a great shooter. So they were forcing, Torrey Craig to take a slightly contested shot, or they were forcing, Caruso, Vucevic, even DeSumo. They weren't allowing Kobe White to be the one taking open threes. Like there were a couple plays where they did, like one play early on where they dug down too far and the Bulls kicked it right back out to Kobe White and he drained a three. And that same thing happened in the fourth quarter. But after the one in the first quarter, I thought they did a good job of adjusting and forcing certain guys to shoot. And that's definitely easy against this Bulls team, especially with Zach LaVine out. He's now out for the season. Like the Bulls, they're just not a great offensive team when you look up and down the roster without Zach LaVine. There's just no one on their bench who's really going to be providing much offense, and the Kings took advantage of that. But they let, DeMar DeRozan get into the paint too much in the fourth quarter. I thought Keegan had a bit of a tough game. There were times, like on the defensive end, there were some great possessions. A possession where he guarded DeRozan, he was amazing. He didn't fall for the pump fake and forced a really tough shot, or actually forced a kick out. But he struggled to stay in front of Caruso at times. And I thought down the stretch they should have put Keegan on DeRozan because Barnes he was getting blown by. There were also moments where they put Trey Lyles on DeMar DeRozan. Again, when DeMar was getting a full head of steam, it was a blow by. It was better when DeMar would go into the post, but you look at DeMar DeRozan's game, he had 15 free throw attempts, went 14 for 15 from the line. He only shot 14 field goals. So he shot more free throws than field goals. It's just the Kings couldn't really keep him out of the paint. But when they were able to keep him out of the paint, they were contesting shots well. Down the stretch, Fox really won us this game with his scoring. And he's obviously, with 41 points, was awesome. Hit free throws, 10 for 12 from the line. Missed one in the fourth, but made his other 3 down the stretch. Monk also at the free throw line, again, like he was perfect up until the clutch, and then his first free throw barely goes in, and then his second one misses. I don't know what's up with him and free throws in the clutch. And then Harrison Barnes hits both of his free throws in the clutch. So better clutch free throw shooting. Still not perfect, especially from Monk, but we shot 82.8% from the free throw line this game, so we will absolutely take that. And then there was a big bucket from Harrison Barnes down the stretch where Keegan had it with 7 seconds on the wing, and he had Kobe White on him. Like Keegan, he struggled offensively in this game, but he's got to take that himself. He didn't. He swung it to Harrison Barnes, gave him a grenade, and luckily Harrison Barnes was able to create and make a tough shot, and that was huge. And I mentioned Keegan struggling a bit on both ends. I mean, he had good defensive moments, but there were just also some bad moments on that end. But offensively, he struggled these last 2 games, and in both games, he's only taken 1 2-point field goal attempt. And this one, it was a dunk, but we haven't seen him these last 2 games trying to get himself a shot inside the 3-point arc. He went 1 for 5 from 3 in this one. And he's not trying to get to his floater, which has been so good this year. He's not trying to get to his step back, fade away in the mid range, not really trying to get to the rim. And so I think he's just struggling because he's not trying to create for himself. I guess it's kind of comparable to Harrison Barnes' struggle early in the season, where it's not that his talent or skill wasn't there. It's just about him not trying to get as many attempts and not trying to create for himself. He also struggled with foul trouble a bit, but still ended with a team high plus 13. And Keegan Murray, most of the time, he's going to have one of the highest plus minuses on the team, because when he's off the floor, this team just suffers a lot defensively. I think if you go back to the very start of this game, the Kings came out and they were playing the right way immediately. It was nice to see on the second night of a back-to-back how much energy the Kings came out with. I thought especially like Fox, Herter, and Sabonis were all super, super active defensively. They were getting so many deflections, just really making things uncomfortable for the Bulls. Another massive game for Fox in the steals department, 5 steals, and that just led to so much easy offense. And the Kings, they started out slow from 3-point range. They were 2 for 7 at one point, but they were getting their offense inside. It was a multitude of different guys, Barnes, Fox, Herter, and I just thought Fox looked so locked in on both ends of the court immediately. You had, it's his son's first birthday. Rain was sitting courtside, so I'm like, maybe there's a bit of motivation there. He definitely seemed motivated. And then you had Malik Monk come in, and just in the blink of an eye, he had 7 points. And that's when the Kings offense really got going. I thought Davion made some good plays in the first quarter on both ends of the court, both creating for teammates offensively and then wreaking havoc defensively. The one thing about that first quarter that wasn't great was Fox missed a free throw with about 6 seconds left. and the Kings got beat down the floor. It happens too much. They get beat down the floor off missed free throws way too much. They don't really load up, and it resulted in a basket. Trey Lyles got a contest off, and he made the shot, kind of difficult, but he really wasn't there in time to really stop the shot. And so that's definitely something the Kings need to clean up a bit. But that in the second quarter, the start of the second quarter, the unit of Fox, Monk, Barnes, Lyles, and McGee, that unit just crushed it offensively. Lyles hit his first 5 threes. He ended the game with 5 threes, 16 points, and just that whole unit looked locked in offensively, and they were getting stops as well. Fox was trying to make things as uncomfortable as possible for Kobe White, and I thought he was doing a really good job. Kobe White just made some tough shots. Like, he's a really good player, and he just made some great plays, but I thought Fox did a pretty good job defensively on him. And then things got real fun when Lyles continued to just knock down every three, and then you had Malik Monk doing 360 passes, and Davion missed the corner 3 off that pass, but then I think it was Lyles got the tip out, and Monk just steps into a 3, and there was just zero doubt in my mind that 3 was going in. Like, after I saw he had the confidence to make a 360 pass, I'm like, yeah, he's feeling it. There's no shot he's missing that. And the Kings just really took advantage of the Bulls' bench in that second quarter. The Kings just have a better bench. The Bulls do not have Trey Lyles off their bench. They don't have Malik Monk off their bench. And that was the difference. I mean, those Bulls bench lineups were just so rough. I'm just looking at it. I'm like, who is scoring? Like, is Ayo Dosunmu the first option? Is Alex Caruso the first option? Like, what is happening? They have Javon Carter, Andre Drummond, Torrey Craig. Like, it's just, they were bad lineups. With Zach LaVine out, they just don't have enough offensive weapons. And so that obviously made things easier for the Kings. But we've seen the Kings allow a lot of points to some very poor teams, and so you got to give them credit for still playing really well defensively, even if it isn't the best offensive unit out there. The rotations were still great. The one-on-one defense was still really, really good. I thought Sabonis had some really good challenges at the rim. Harrison Barnes as well, going straight up. For some reason, the Kings challenged a foul call. Mike Brown again challenged a foul call at the end of the second quarter, or mid to end of the second quarter. Just a dumb challenge. Nothing's new. I just, what is going on with our challenges? That's just something that, I mention it once every time I'm talking here. After every game, I mention it, but it's never like a big deal. But at some point, it's going to be a big deal where we don't have our challenge. There's a big missed call late. Like, you saw the Bulls get an extra possession late because of a challenge. Like, Mike Brown he has to be better, and he said he was going to be better, and then maybe he was for a little bit. But lately, again, he's just been wasting them in the first half. Like, even if you win that challenge, I understand it was Keegan Murray's 3rd foul. I get it. But you're never winning that challenge. You never are winning that challenge. And even if you are, it's a first half challenge. To challenge something in the first half, it has to be 100%. And honestly, it kind of took some momentum away from the Kings. And they struggled a little bit offensively for a couple minutes. But then it was nice to see Sabonis step into a mid-range jumper to kind of end that drought. And then you had Fox hitting threes, and he hit that big 3 to end the quarter. And so it was a very good end of the second quarter to really put some distance between the Kings and the Bulls. And it felt like that really should have been the end of it once they came out of the third quarter strong. But it wasn't. But it is what it is. Going through just some of the individual stat lines, Sabonis, 13 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists. I mentioned the 6 turnovers. Definitely wasn't his best game, but still a triple-double, still efficient from the field. It just wasn't one of those games where he could score a lot. Just with the way the Bulls were defending, and when he did kind of try to score it, it resulted in turnovers because of the way they were just swarming him. Like, all their guards, Caruso, Javon Carter, Ayo Dosunmu, like all those guys just swarming down on him, making life really tough. So it was more of a playmaking game for him, which is his style anyways. Barnes, 11 points, the classic 1 rebound game from him, 1 for 5 from three. But I thought he had some really important moments of getting inside or to the mid range and scoring. And so that's something I always like to see. Keegan, I already talked about, but 5 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 for 6 from the field, 1 for 5 from three. Fox going crazy, 41 points, 5 steals, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 13 for 24 from the field. It felt like it'd been a while since he really exploded like this. So that was fun to watch, and him doing it on the defensive end as well. Kevin Huerter, 1 for 5 from three, just like Barnes with 9 points. And he missed some layups, 3 for 9 from the field. But I thought he was super active defensively. And again, you have, Huerter not having the best offensive game. Barnes, not the greatest shooting game. Keegan Murray, not a great offensive game. But then you have Trey Lyles step up, 16 points, 5 for 7 from three. He had 2 steals, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. You have Monk stepping up. I really do think it is impossible for Monk and Huerter to play well at the same time. I mean, maybe that's okay because one of them has to be the one to actually finish out the game. It's never going to be both of them out there at the same time. So maybe that's okay. But 22 points, 7 assists for Monk, only 1 turnover. He had that crazy block when he was helping over in the paint. And he does that a lot. Like his rotations as the low man, like he gets over and he can get up. So he provides some rim protection. And he's actually close to leading the team in blocks per game. It like goes between him and Keegan and Domas, I think. They're all around like 0.6 blocks per game. Obviously not a very high number, but he does provide some rim protection. Maybe a little underrated in that sense. He has his poor defensive moments, like he'll lose his man a few times a game, rotate poorly, have a three in the key, whatever it is. But then he'll have the crazy plays defensively like that. Davion, 4 points. I thought he had some important drives, got to the free throw line. Like those 4 points were big. Getting to the basket when it felt like no one else could. And he had 4 assists, was doing some good distributing, has some very good defensive moments. JaVale McGee was not great. 2 points, 1 for 3 from the field in 7 minutes. Went 0 for 2 from the free throw line. When the Kings were already making a bunch of stupid plays and just not getting anything to go offensively, then of course he's the one to like try to make a hook shot. Like, no. When he did that, I was just like, what are you doing? But also, I expect that from him. Like, that's what you get for playing JaVale McGee. That's what you get. We didn't see much Kessler Edwards at all. Like, he played a few seconds, I think, which we didn't really need his defensive presence in this game. And so, I mean, it makes sense why he didn't play. The Bulls don't really have the best offensive players. Like, maybe if Zach LaVine was playing, he would get thrown out there to take that matchup. Also, ESPN, they got to fix their box score. Every game, it has Juan Toscano Anderson as if he played. Like, not even as a DNP. It shows as if he played in the game. 0 minutes, just like Kessler Edwards. But he didn't, like, he's not on the team. What are we doing? Another complaint, just like unrelated to this basketball team, is the Kings' production, the NBC Sports. I mean, it's been horrible for the past 2 years at least. They constantly cut away from the game and miss plays. I mean, when a team, it could be either team, is pushing it in transition, they'll just cut to like Lonzo Ball sitting courtside or Baby Rain. Like, okay, at least if you're going to cut away, make it be to a cute baby. But like, they do this all the time, and they'll do it where you can see the ref handing the ball to the Kings player or the Bulls player to inbound the ball, and then they'll cut away. It's like they are starting the game. We just saw it, and now you're cutting away. And they even did it with 8 seconds to go in the game where the Kings were inbounding. We didn't see the inbounds play. In fact, they were so late to getting back, I thought the play just didn't happen and that players were just walking to their benches for a timeout. But no, they were walking to the free throw line because there had been a foul. I looked down, I'm like, time went off the clock. we just missed the whole play. They're so insanely bad. So I had to get that off my chest. But the Kings' next game is a very tough one, but that's why going 5-1 so far on this road trip is amazing. This just feels like a free game. Like I'm going to be relaxed, at least at the start. Obviously, if the Kings get a big lead and start blowing it again, I'm still going to get really stressed. But from the start, I should be, pretty calm because I don't expect us to win this game at all. It's against the Cavaliers, who have been playing amazing as of late. They had Garland and Mobley out, and it made their team better somehow. They're 31-16 on the season, 17-8 at home. They've won 5 in a row and 9 of their last 10. And so this just feels like a bonus game where you don't win it. Okay, you go home and you play the Pistons and you win that game. But if you win it, then the vibes are absolutely amazing. So honestly, I hope they just come in, they play free, they play relaxed, and you just see what you can do on the 7th game of a long road trip against a really good team. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back to recap that game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I'll see you then. Peace.